Today's kind of an interesting day for me, and hopefully for the rest of you. This month marks 12 years that I've been at this congregation. And the average tenure of preachers nationwide is 3 to 4 years. So I have officially made it 3 to 4 times longer than the average preacher. It's pretty typical that preachers leave in the third year. It's kind of there's the 3-year rule. And there are a number of theories out there for why that happens. But generally, what happens is the honeymoon stage is over, right? New guys come in, fresh blood. They have all these great ideas. They're getting to know people. People are excited. And then at the 3-year mark, the honeymoon phase is over. And an interesting component happens with that, and that's that relationships have a season. It's kind of a strange thing in the church because in real life, typically when we make friends, we have friends for life. In the church, it doesn't work that way, and I think that's really unfortunate. Friends come and go, and they come and go a lot. And so preachers tend to burn out after about 3 years. And then they leave, they start with a new church, and on that cycle goes. Evidence shows that the longer the tenure, the more stable the congregations typically, not always the case, but typically, and longevity is the key to overcome the hurdles for revitalization of congregations. I wanted to do a recap and just go through some of the ups and downs of the last 12 years. I was looking through pictures, and I've put some of those together, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal that a congregation our size has done what we've done, and especially given the amount of traumatic events that this congregation has experienced. So I'm going to go over to my photos. Let me find the right place. 2009, I came in the middle of the year, so that was kind of just a transition, getting used to it, still the excitement. And then 2010, and this is not by any means an exhaustive list of things that we did, but it's just kind of highlights throughout the years. But 2010, remember Camp Allegheny? We went out and we did the ropes course, and there's Eric making leadership, making a choo-choo. We actually had a group, I think, of about 50 people that day. So we had a really good-sized group. There's somebody, I don't even know who that is, being passed through the little spider web of death. But I remember that day really clearly. 2010, does anybody recognize what that is? I thought I remembered. Oh, I know what that is. We went to Alexander Campbell, the Campbell Mansion in West Virginia. There is Rusty Campbell beside a bust of Alexander Campbell. That's at the graveyard. That's Alexander Campbell's grave site in Bethany, West Virginia. Another picture of Rusty with a bust of Rusty Campbell beside Alexander Campbell. And then, of course, Brittany being baptized the same day as her brother Zach and DP. All 3 baptisms in the same day. 2 of them in the Stony Creek River in Shanksville, and then Brittany didn't want to brave the cold, so she did it in the warm baptistry. There's DP and Zach right before their baptism. There's DP right after with his dad. I guess I was wrong. That was 2009. So we started with a bang. That was all 2009. So 2010, we had a faith rally where Chad came up, our good friend Chad Solaire. We had the group, what were they called? Choose? There's Chad up talking. And then, of course, 2010, who could forget the birth of Eden? She learned to wink as an infant. We were 1 year into ministry and had Eden in May of 2010. The next month, or maybe even the same month, I don't remember. No, when was that? June? So the next month, Eden was a month old, and we ventured down to the Creation Museum. We had a pretty good sized group. Then we did VBS that year, and we also had our 100-year anniversary in 2010. I didn't have pictures of that for some reason. They're floating around somewhere. 2011 was the year that we got these chairs. We got rid of the pews. We got the chairs in. We did tornado cleanup. We took a group down to Glen Spring, Virginia, and did tornado cleanup. That was our crew that we brought down. There's Mike Riggs being OSHA safe. The Mike McKay way was to tie old rotten hemp ropes around trees and pull them, and they kept snapping. And we had a couple close mishaps, but nobody died that trip. The McKays moved in 2011. We did another VBS in 2011. And of course, 2011 was whenever my sister disclosed the abuse about my dad. My dad was arrested in 2011. Obviously, a very big life-changing event. 2012, we went to Haiti. We took a nice group down there. There's Bill and his tiara. There's Dave singing Celine Dion. We did a huge medical clinic one day, and there's our group at the medical clinic. We also fixed up the playground at 800 East Main here in town. There's Mike and Bill swinging away on the swings that we fixed. We were handing out brochures and different things to the kids there. The kids were coming out in droves as the day moved on. We did, let's see, I have a little list here, so I'm trying to keep track of everything. We did a bike trip in 2012. There was Mike Leck. That's how he dressed on our bike trip. We were showing these pictures at a little family memorial service for Mike last night, and everybody was loving the pictures of Mike. Yeah, his fingernails are painted. He was all decked out. Also in 2012, there was another trip to Haiti. This congregation, no, never mind. That was 2013. We're in 2013 now. That was a trip to Haiti that this congregation went on. I did not go on that trip, but several of you did. There's Bill again. We also fixed up the playground again in 2013 at 800 East Main. Also in 2013, I don't have pictures of this, but we appointed elders and deacons, and of course, Cameron was born. We delivered Christmas presents, a tractor-trailer load of Christmas presents in December of 2013. Had a pretty nice group from here that volunteered for that. 2014 was kind of the heyday of this congregation. We did, if you remember, the Easter play. That was our record attendance of all time. As far as I can tell, looking back at our records, we had 159 in this auditorium that Sunday. We literally had people standing on the sides. We had every seat that we could fit in this auditorium. Look how little the kids were. It's amazing how quick time flies. 2015, we did Sight and Sound. There's Cameron looking pretty serious. And of course, we welcomed our third and last child, Isaac. This was taken 9 days after Isaac was born. This was the day my brother Mike died, just hours before. We were stir crazy because we were cooped up in the house. I called up Mike Leck, and Mike said, "Come on down to camp. We have lots of food. We'll just sit around the campfire. We'll hang out." We went down, had a great time. We got home, and that's when I got the call that my brother Mike had died. 2016, we did a picnic. Out at the Riggs Pavilion, Roxanne and David renewed their vows that day. We did a bike ride to Markleton. I don't think we did any mission work that year. DP, you can show the picture too, 2013. I forgot to mention this. Actually, you don't have pictures that I do. These are kind of scattered, so bear with me. 2013, backing up a few years, is when we painted the Guybor's house. We had a group from Michigan came. We had a huge group from our congregation that helped. And you can see what kind of shape it was in. There was Mike chilling out. There's my mother-in-law. I have lots and lots of pictures of this, so I'm just going to skip through. But we had a pretty big crew, and we worked on the house for a week straight. I'm going to go back to these photos. Now I'm going to have to fast forward through. Yeah, time does fly. Look at that. So this is 2016. And then 2017, we did bowling. I don't have many pictures from 2017. I call this the year of tension. This was, I think, a year that we all kind of felt a lot of tension, the year of the bylaws and all that mess. That's a year that I tried to block out. As I said, ministry has a lot of ups and downs. But there's Bill in 2017 in the middle of all the turmoil, leading singing and doing what he loved to do. I was telling Natalie that just looking through the pictures, Bill was always consistent. You never knew whether times were extremely good or extremely bad because he just dug right in there and he served. And he always brought light to each of us. 2018, we did more bowling, and I call this the year of healing. We didn't do a whole lot, but we did sing. Sarah, this was whenever we came out to Meadowview. And we started coming out, I think it was like every other month. We would go sing different places. And we did several hiking trips. That was out at Pump House Trail, out at Laurel Highlands, or Laurel Hill, rather. We did a lock-in, 2019. The kids have been begging us for another one. We've been avoiding their begging because it's a lot of work, isn't it, Brent? And then 2019, we took another trip to Haiti, the Riggses and Eden and myself. We went to visit Steph and Ronnie. They needed a pick-me-up, and we went, and we had an incredible week. That's on top of the Citadel. We got back. I went to Kansas. I flew out to Kansas. I flew back into Pittsburgh. Natalie met me just outside of Pittsburgh, and then we drove down to the Ark. So it was just one trip to the other. I was globe-trotting that year. But we did the Ark encounter. We had a pretty good-sized group. And we also went to Ecuador in 2019. We were picking up a lot of steam in 2019, and then, of course, you know what happened in 2020. That was our group sitting around the campfire. We had 12? DP, how many went? 12? There's DP goofing off. We were all trying to work while DP's goofing off, playing guitar with a shovel, corrupting the Ecuadorians. And the boys working while DP was outside sleeping. DP was passed out in a chair, just snoozing away, while my sons were working. I believe this was also 2019. May have been 2020. Not sure. I think that was 19 still. We packed a lot into 2019. And then, of course, COVID brought everything to a grinding halt in 2020. We used that as an opportunity to really work on the live stream. We were forced to shut down for 8 weeks. We didn't meet here. So a lot of you probably don't know this, but Bill Riggs donated a pretty significant amount. And he said, get whatever equipment you need. And he said, we're going to make the live stream better. He said, if that's the avenue for us to worship, we're going to make it good. There's Workhorse Willie in the background. He couldn't sit still. He had to be working. That's whenever we built DP and Dave's snooze studio. And of course, 2020, Mike couldn't get to his dialysis because the transportation, the city bus wouldn't pick him up anymore unless he had an approved wheelchair ramp. I made 2 phone calls that day, one to Dave Zersky, one to Bill Riggs. Bill said, let me look into some things. Mike called me up a couple hours later and he said, there's a crew here building a ramp. And he built an absolutely incredible ramp. And then this year, I don't have pictures of this. I didn't have time to steal them, steal Elisa's pictures, but we did the fun day out at Shanksville. We have a lot more planned for this year. There are tons of activities that we have planned, but Eden, I forgot to mention, 2020, Eden successfully raised by herself over $7,500 and got a well put in Haiti. That was all her. And Eden and Marianne both work together, and they're dedicated to putting in 1 well a year. And it's going to go in a developing nation, either Haiti or Ghana. Actually, the month of July is supposed to be our month, so we got to get on the ball. But Marianne partnered with Eden. She's going to raise a bunch of the support, and then Eden's going to raise the other part of the support. And we're going to keep drilling wells in memory of Bill Riggs. So it's pretty incredible. But we look back, and I'll try to wrap this up quickly, but there's just so much to talk about. This congregation has supported missions in Scotland. We still support the Campbells. I think we're in year 9 or 10 of supporting the Campbells in Ecuador. We supported Steph and Ronnie for several years in Haiti. Right now, every month we give, is it $300 a month? $260 a month? We give that to a Haitian minister that we met. I got to be good friends with. We're supporting a work along with supporting orphans in Haiti. That's a continuing work of this congregation. We have done a lot of support. Anytime that we had special contributions to raise money for you name it, this congregation always stepped up. And we always wondered where the money came from, because I don't think we have real deep pockets, but when push comes to shove and there's a need, people reach really deep. And we always raise, it's always a minimum of $1,000. And that's in addition to the regular contribution. I told Natalie I kind of debated, whether to talk about some of the sad parts too, but I think it's not a complete picture without painting the full picture too. Clearly, this congregation has done incredible work and continues to do incredible work. I was going down through just off the top of my head, and I started writing names down of people who've left, walked away from the congregation. These are not people who moved, went to college for any other reason. They just left. And as of this morning, I came up with over 100 people. In 12 years as a minister, you have to take that personally. You try to not make that a reflection of your ministry, but every single one of those people who leaves, it hurts a lot. Natalie and I always take it very personally when people leave. We don't like to see people go. We don't want to see people go. So that's one of the tough parts of ministry and it's not unique to this congregation. It's all over the place. So that's been one of the sad things we've had that I could count. I think there were 49 people who moved away. Those are people who relocated or they went off to college and didn't come back. So 49 that I can think of. I'm sure there are more. And then, of course, our deaths. We had, I think I counted 16 deaths over the past 12 years of direct congregational members. This past year, obviously, being one of the most painful, with losing a lot of people in 1 year. So, those are kind of the tough parts of it. But I want to end with going back to this passage because, again, this is just ministry and it's life. But we proudly serve and we're proudly here, and we plan to remain serving at this congregation. Here's what Paul says to Timothy. In his second letter, Timothy was in Ephesus, which was a really rough city. If you remember, Timothy was from Lystra, the place where Paul was stoned and left for dead. Paul called Timothy into ministry when Timothy was likely around the age of 13, maybe 14 years old. That's when Timothy hit the trail with Paul. Timothy becomes a very young preacher, and he goes to Ephesus where there was this riot, and there were 24,000 people packed inside the stadium shouting for 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of Ephesus." Paul was forced out of Ephesus. Timothy remained. Timothy became the preacher in the city of Ephesus. Here's what Paul writes to Timothy. "I charge you in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who is to judge the living and the dead, by his appearing and his kingdom, preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but have itching ears. They will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. As for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering." It's an important message to tell ministers. Endure suffering. Do the work of an evangelist. Fulfill your ministry. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Powerful words from Paul the evangelist. We proudly serve this congregation. I'm excited that I can't believe it's been 12 years. But we love all of you, and our heart is here in Somerset, and we love this congregation, and I think we're in for some really big things starting this year. Continuing through this year. Thank you, guys. The message is yours today. If there's anybody who has prayer needs or has not yet taken the step to put Christ on a baptism, we encourage you to come up as we all stand and we sing together this song.